I know sometimes I suggest movies to you that you don't have any intention of watching. I know. But you really should watch The Fabelmans if you haven't already. It's nominated for several Oscars. It's a great movie. You should watch it. It's called The Fabelmans. It's Steven Spielberg's sort of semi-autobiographical, I can't even say that word, it's too long. It's his life story, kind of, or at least up until he finds his way into film and why he finds his way into film. And if you're not familiar with who Steven Spielberg is or his films, shame on you. It's a great story. You should see it. Here's the thing, though. There's a scene in it where he's a boy, a teenager, and he's with his buddies and stuff, and he tells them something that his dad tells him right at the very beginning of the movie. And that is that they're thinking of entering in a contest. It's a photo contest. And he wants to enter a movie, and of course somebody says, well, but that's not a photo. And he says, the thing is, a film is really just a series of pictures, right? A frame is a picture. And it's just a series of pictures that move so quickly that your eye perceives it as motion, that it's a moving picture, right? Which, by the way, is the origin of the term movie, right? That it was originally called moving pictures. So really, a film is just a series of frames, a series of pictures. We tell our stories that way, whether you realize it or not. We do have a tendency to tell our stories that way. In fact, we have a tendency to live our stories sometimes frame by frame, or story by story, picture by picture. The thing about that is when we tell stories that way, okay, but when you look at a picture, first of all, a picture is entirely open to your interpretation if I don't tell you where it's from or what it means. It's also just one moment in a series of moments. And that one moment may well be affected by all those other series of moments. That one moment might have a very specific place in that series of moments. Which is why, frankly, moving pictures, anything, whether that's actually film or it's now digital or whatever it is now, is so valuable as a storytelling tool. It gives you more than just one frame. We have a tendency to tell our stories that way. Our Bible stories in particular, we have a tendency to tell that way. We take a frame out of the story and we talk about it as if it's something that could actually stand alone. It isn't, by the way. I mean, you can certainly take one particular moment or one particular story out of the Bible, half a dozen verses even, and talk about it as it stands. But you're not telling the whole story, are you? In fact, even if you're telling your own personal story and you tell a moment, an anecdote, it's a soundbite, right? And ideally, what you want that to do is encourage somebody to go, tell me more. Tell me more of your story. Unfortunately, sometimes it leads to us going, that's all it means. Or even worse, interpreting it in a way that meets our already decided criteria. I can use that story because it already fits what I think. All the more reason why we need to know what's going on around it. The story, that little fragment of scripture you heard this morning is one of those moments. We can talk about it as one frame. Let's talk about it as one frame. You are salt and you are light. Let's be clear right off the bat. Jesus didn't say you are like salt and light, and if you do this, you'll be even more like it. He didn't say that. It's not like saying the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, or that the love of God is like the sower and the seed. You are salt and you are light. You already are that. The point isn't that you can be that, because you already are it. The point is what you're going to do with that. because salt and light are useless by themselves. It's what they do that's important. It's how they act on the things around them. Salt flavors. Salt preserves. Salt can also, by the way, be quite destructive. Light illuminates. You can't really see it. I know, scientists in the room, you're going to tell me, yes, you can. You can, sure, a certain way. But the point isn't that you look directly at it, because that will blind you. Again, there is a destructive side. The point is what it illuminates, how it enlightens, what you can see in it. Jesus' point isn't that you can be those things. You already are. The question is whether you do anything with it or not. And there's a good reason why you should darn well do something with it. And that is, Jesus did not come to abolish the law or get rid of the commandments or the prophets or any of that. He came to fulfill it. And that's the point of being salt and light. When you act in the world, because you are already flavoring the world. You are already enlightening the world. You are already shining your light. Whether you like it or not, you're stuck with it. The question is, what effect are you going to have on people? Are you going to be destructive? Are you going to break down? Or are you going to build up and fulfill? That's the point of salt, isn't it? When it flavors, it doesn't flavor as salt. What it does is bring out the other flavors. It brings them to fulfillment. What does light do? It shows you things. It enlightens. In that light, we can see the potential of things. We can see the opportunity in things. We can also see the challenge in things. But in shining our light, we can bring fulfillment. And that's the point, is the fulfillment of what the kingdom of heaven is all about. That's what Jesus teaches. That's what his life's all about. I'm going to come back to that in just 1 second. And if you're worried that I'm going to be too demanding about this, you should be, because I'm gonna. But also, if you're worried that Jesus is too demanding about this and you're not ever going to be living up to the potential of Jesus, don't worry. He has set the bar very low. As long as you can do better than the Pharisees, you're good. And you know how Jesus talks about the Pharisees. Because it's not in this frame. But in the rest of the story, you know how Jesus talks about the Pharisees. He talks about how insincere they are, how inauthentic they are, how they live the letter of the law, but they don't live the spirit of the law. They do not bring the law to fulfillment. You can. You can. That's the frame. Okay, how are we going to do that, Jesus? If he had stopped right there, you can imagine somebody in the crowd would have said, okay, but how do we do that? We need some instructions. We need some guidelines here. Tell us what to do. I imagine Jesus' initial response to that being something like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, because I can't tell you what to do and what to think. You need to figure that out for you, because you are you, the unique salt and light that you are. But let me tell you some stuff. Before I do, let me remind you how I started. Do you remember how the Sermon on the Mount goes? Because it goes kind of like this. Jesus sees there's a crowd. They've come to hear him speak. And he looks at the crowd. I think the reason that Jesus stands on the side of a mountain or hillside or whatever isn't just that metaphorical because that way he's got the higher ground thing. I don't think it's just about being able to be heard better. I think it's so that he can see your faces. Because I think Jesus looked at the crowd and he realized he was looking at people who were hurting and broken, who were grieving, who were oppressed. He was looking at a crowd that included people that were trying so hard to live what God is all about and were struggling. He was looking at people who were trying to bring peace to their land and struggling at that. And he said, the very first thing he says, you are blessed, just as you are. Not you will be blessed if, or at some point you will be blessed. You are blessed right now. You have been blessed from the beginning simply because you are. You have life. You are loved by God just because you're you. Start with that. Start from a place of knowing you are blessed. And I know I say this a lot because I'm always saying, at some point I'd really like it if somebody would interrupt the message and we'd have a nice interactive back and forth, or you'd participate and say stuff. I know. I honestly think that's how it goes with Jesus. Because I think he started out by saying, you are blessed, and he said all of these things, and then somebody went, okay, I guess. I've never heard that before. In fact, my whole life experience is telling me I'm not. All the more reason why you need to hear it, Jesus would say. You are blessed because you are. Set aside all of that other crap for just a moment and realize you are blessed just because you are. You have life. And if you start from that moment and bring that blessing into the world, well, you're salt and light. You're flavoring, however you bring yourself, you are flavoring the world and you are bringing light to the world. If you start with blessing and bring that into the world, imagine how the world would be. Fulfilled, maybe? At least wouldn't you feel more fulfilled? Okay, Jesus, okay, all right, we got that part. You want us to begin with blessing and live salt and light, and you want us to live into the world. We still a little bit more direction, please. We still need a little help with that. All right. So listen, I'm going to talk at you for another 45 minutes. Sorry, that was Jesus speaking, not me. I'm going to talk at you for another 45 minutes. I'm going to tell you about the law, and I'm going to tell you about prayer. I'm going to tell you about a whole bunch of stuff that can help you. So listen close. But more importantly, I'm living that every day and trying to show you how to live that. Every day of my ministry, every day of my life, I am trying to show you that, says Jesus. And most important of all, that you are capable of it too. You are already flavoring the world with your own unique distinctiveness. You are already bringing light to the world because you are blessed. Imagine what we could do. Imagine what we could do if we lived some of those ideas, some of those things that are in the law, the Ten Commandments. Imagine how we could do things if we lived intentionally with love and compassion and grace. Now, don't imagine that as if you're sitting in a comfortable pew on a Sunday morning. Imagine that as if it's any other moment of the week. Because this isn't what it's about. What it's about is out there. And we can sometimes take our one little frame, hear something about it, and leave feeling perhaps uplifted, perhaps feeling maybe occasionally chastised, but hopefully uplifted. We'll feel maybe a little inspired, and then we'll go have coffee, and then we'll go home and we'll move on. That's how the saltiness is lost. That's how the light is dimmed. No matter where we are in our lives, we can always bring salt and light to the world. It may not just be in one particular moment, but that's where it starts. It may not be every single moment of a lifetime, except it is, because you live, you have life, you bring your unique life to the world. So how are you going to do that? You can wait for someone to tell you how you can do that. You absolutely can. You can wait to hear someone tell you something that would inspire you to think, I can help you. What can I do for you? Yes, you can. You can also be inspired to wonder at what blessings are in you that you could share with the world and how you might share those blessings. Jesus doesn't give you just one path. When Jesus says, I'm the way, in fact, the earliest Christians were called the people of the way, right? The way isn't to put your foot directly in Jesus' footstep. It's to walk with him, because Jesus walks with you. Have I used enough metaphors that we've used in church for ages? But that is the point. You can't wait for someone to tell you what to do. You can't always wait for someone to ask you for your help. Sometimes you just have to do. But all of those things happen. All of those things are necessary because, well, like earlier with the kids, the world isn't just a clear glass of water. There's lots of things in it, and there's lots of things going on. And how we engage the world is up to us, each unique and individual that we are. But you are already engaging the world. What will you bring to it?